Hi, it's Vicki, and I'm here with another edition of It's About Time. We're starting out today with the page where people are quoted, and one of the quotes is by Hillary Clinton that says, "That was a mistake. I'm sorry about that." She's referring to the emails that went through her office on a private email server, and what strikes me as weird is that they're saying she finally apologized, and it's my understanding that she said from the get-go that she was sorry that she had done that she wasn't aware that it was a problem. So once again, an attack on Hillary, but I can forgive time for that because I'm sure that this is coming from the right. 5.1%, the U.S. unemployment rate, which is the lowest since April of 2008. Thumbs up for Obama. And we're talking about Tom Brady and the New England Patriots with the Deflategate. My son told me that he feels like that all of the teams participated in this, and probably singling out Tom Brady wasn't such a good idea. And maybe that's true, but I believe that there should be accountability when people cheat, and that's all I have to say about that. The lady in Kentucky, when she refused to give out licenses to homosexual couples, whether you agree with that or not, this is the law, and she was obligated to obey the law. She said it is a heaven or hell decision. Now, her handing out a marriage license to a couple has nothing to do with her going to heaven or hell. I'm sure that in her tenure, she has handed out licenses to people who might have been pedophiles, people who might have been wife abusers. She had no idea, but because she had the knowledge that these people were homosexuals, she chose to make a stand, and she went to jail for 5 days for defying the law. They did let her out, and they made a compromise so that she no longer has to do that. Someone else in the office can issue those licenses, and I think that's a fair compromise. I'm going to touch on that later, and time does too. The refugee crisis from Syria. I'm going to show you a picture that went viral. It's sad, and it's of a little boy, a tiny little boy, lying dead on the sand. This is tragic, and like I have said before, something needs to be done. Germany's doing a lot of it, and the European Union is stepping up and letting these refugees find places to live. From what I understand from Time magazine, half, and I mean half, of Syria's population, all because of whatever his name was, Ben al-Bashar or whatever, the former ruler of Syria who was hateful to his people, killed many of them. Half have either been displaced or left the country in fear of their lives. The Pope has decided that the Vatican is going to take in 2 families. He said it's time to do an outreach and set an example. So the Vatican will be housing and taking care of the medical expenses of 2 families who are refugees from this area. He also states that he's going to fast-track annulments, get the church caught up on that, and give priests more power to get some of this work done. And he's going to forgive abortion. There's going to be a lot of forgiving of abortion so that people can come back to the church. Whether you agree with abortion or not, the church, the Catholic Church, does not. And he is reaching out to those who have aborted their babies, offering forgiveness and a welcome back to the church. I think this is good. Censorship. This is inexcusable. But New Zealand banned a book for the first time in 22 years because a Christian lobbying group said there was too much sexually explicit scenes and offensive language. Now, I am all for keeping our children from viewing obscene literature, but we cannot start down the road of banning books, or we will wind up another Hitler's Germany, and the books that we will ban eventually might be the very ones that the Christians agree with. We need to take stands on issues that are legal according to the Constitution, although this is not in the United States, this is New Zealand. I like reading this. A $6.4 million settlement was made between the city of Baltimore and the family of Freddie Gray, who was a 25-year-old black man who suffered a spinal injury while he was sustained in police custody. I like Ben Carson. He's running for the Republican Party. He's a neurosurgeon, but he has some great ideas about his political process. He's friending everybody he can with gimmicks on Facebook. He's selling bus space, which allows people to pay money to put their names or their organizations on his bus. He's keeping it small, and his average donations are like $50, but he's already raised $6 million for his campaign because of doing that. It's kind of a grassroots movement similar to what Obama did, which got him elected, and also what Hillary is doing, which will get her elected, and you know I'm for her. She will be the next president, and if she isn't, then you can say something to me about it. He also says stay low-key. I think he believes that Donald Trump's ideas of campaigning and antagonizing the world are just not working. Although I do agree with some of the things that Donald Trump says, because he is tired of the rhetoric. He thinks people should say what they mean and mean what they say. The Queen of England, September 9th, she had ruled 63 years and 7 months, and that is the longest reigning monarch in England's history. Although, in my history class this last week, I was challenged by my professor to look up what might be currently happening to change that status. Richard III, who was the last English king, and at that point the Tudor family and monarchy took over, they have found his remains, and DNA testing might prove that the current House of Windsor is not a legitimate heir to the throne. Now, I never liked Queen Elizabeth. I didn't like the way she treated Princess Diana, and that's just my personal feeling. But I think she's been kind of mean-spirited. And the Bible says that pride goes before a fall. And maybe when England realizes, if this happens through DNA, that she has no right to the throne, I really wonder what will happen then. Now, I want to get just a little extensive in that fight in Kentucky. Time magazine brought up some really good points. Suppose that somewhere in pluralistic America, a devout Hindu is placed in charge of a city department where he has to issue building permits. He's allowed to follow his religion and not kill cows. But would he be allowed to deny a permit for a steakhouse? If it's his job, he would have to do that. A Muslim might take a job as a lifeguard. Does that mean that the Muslim is allowed, he would be allowed to make his prayers 5 times a day or however many they do? That would be great. He would be allowed to follow his religion, but would he be allowed not to rescue a woman in a bikini? I don't think so. If a Quaker pacifist is elected county clerk somewhere in, say, and this is the point, Kentucky, Can she be forced into the National Guard and sent off into combat if she's a conscientious observer? Obviously not. But if her rules of her job is to issue licenses to homosexual couples, this is her job. She's a government employee and she needs to abide by the laws of the land. My feeling is, if you are one of these people and you know that your religion is more important and you believe that, then the job you are seeking to hold, then you shouldn't take that job. And if the laws change, you need to negotiate with your employer, make a change, or go find another job. One of the things that Time brought up, which was very interesting, they said, we've seen this before. And it always ends the same way. When Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus defied an order to implement school desegregation in 1957, President Dwight Eisenhower sent in federal troops and the schools were integrated. Uncle Sam carries a big stick. And remember, Uncle Sam truly is we the people. If we have voted people into office and we don't always agree with the laws that they make, we still have an obligation to obey the laws of the land. And as Christians, this is scriptural. If we are asked to do something against our religion, we can negotiate and do something else. But we cannot defy authority without repercussions. Whether you are for homosexual marriage or not, I disagree with this lady in Kentucky that if I sat in an office issuing a license, I'm not going to hell for that. This was kind of funny because someone stated in Time magazine that a lot of people that are for Donald Trump, he is rude, crude, and ugly, and a significant wedge of the public, mostly white men with a high school education, love it. I'm sorry, but in some ways I agree with this. Going to college has changed my perspective. It hasn't changed my faith, but it has changed my perspective about who to trust and whose words to trust and who not to. Beijing's Tiananmen Square has seen a lot of activity lately in China because the leader, Chinese leader, I think it's Xi Jinping, who will have a state visit in the U.S. soon, is exerting his power. He not only is marching and sending helicopters and everything through Tiananmen Square, but recently Chinese Navy ships sailed near Alaska for the first time, just as U.S. President Barack Obama was visiting the state. I think he's trying to pull our chain a little bit, but it won't work. America is a great nation, and it will stay that way. Ironically, Tiananmen, the Tiananmen Square, the word Tiananmen means gate of heavenly peace. I would really appreciate it if the leader of China would fulfill those words. There's more in the issue about the people coming over, the refugees from Syria. I showed you the sad picture of the little child laying dead on the seashore. This is sad. But now onto a political issue. This really shocked me. A man named David Brock has changed sides in the political theater. While he was a Republican in the far right, helping the Republicans, he had written a book back in the 90s, I think it was. Salvation came first to Brock, who in 1994 found himself suicidal, sitting in a running Range Rover in a closed garage in Laguna Beach, California, suffering for the lies he had peddled about Anita Hill. Remember that problem, Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas? This man has admitted that he peddled lies about her so that she would lose. And Clarence Thomas, I believe, is on the Supreme Court. And it saddens me to think that someone got above the law and was not held accountable for his crimes and sits in judgment over others. He stepped out of the car and into his next project, a takedown biography of Clinton, which had earned him $1 million advance. But instead of writing what everyone expected, he wrote the truth as he saw it, and it was a glowing tribute to a courageous woman. He has switched sides, and now he is working on behalf of Hillary Clinton because he believes that telling lies to win a political office is not right, and it almost caused him to take his own life. This saddens me to think. I believed it was true, but it saddens me to realize that it is true. He has created outbursts that helped get Don Imus kicked off MSNBC, ended Lou Dobbs' run at CNN, chased Fortune 500 advertisers away from Rush Limbaugh, who's well, I can't use the word, and organized a boycott of Glenn Beck's Fox. Glenn Beck has been the most disrespectful professing Christian on TV that I have ever witnessed. And when I watched him do his little blackboard chalk drawings and hate-mongering towards Obama, I realized that he was corrupt in his soul and that God was not honored, or the Christian faith, through what he had to say. Just bear with me as I look through this magazine. They had a question and answer. In fact, the whole magazine, the title of the magazine was called 21 Other Questions About the Way We Live Now. One of them was, is monogamy over? Will robots need rights? Which fashions will find appalling in the future? I think it's going to be the near nakedness. Is monogamy over? Some say that biologically that monogamy is against nature. It certainly is not against the scriptures. And that is how I feel. Should we let ourselves be anonymous online? Heck yeah! That might lead to racist remarks. I understand that. I have been attacked before by anonymous people who usurped my name and my likeness and had so many people online angry with me, thinking I was a pedophile. And those of you who might listen to this broadcast would know that that's the last thing I would ever be, since I was a victim of one. But of course there is a feeling that people who are victims of pedophiles go on to be that way, but certainly not me. I was shocked by this. It says, America lacks a logo. So what should it be? What happened to the bald eagle? Let's get over it, folks. We have a logo. It's our flag, and it's on the uniforms of every soldier, and it's the bald eagle. How much binge watching on TV should happen? I might call it binge watching. I love to watch a lot of crime dramas where I don't have to watch the commercials. I'm tired of people trying to sell me things. If I want to buy something, I'll look it up. I'll find it and I'll go get it. I'm tired of advertising. Advertising in many ways has lost its niche in society. But binge watching or any electronic device that takes our attention away from our children needs to be readdressed. I think we need to sit down at the table again and have at least one meal with our children, our grandchildren, talk about our day, be a family unit again. I believe a lot of the schools would have less problems with their children if parents were paying attention. Where I babysit for my grandchildren, there is a park where the rule is that the children are supposed to be supervised, but 99% of the time there are children there as young as 3 who are not supervised. And that tells me that their parents are negligent or just don't care. Because, personally, if I wanted to, I could take one of those children and leave with that child, and the parent would never know. And it scares me to think that this is something that will occur down the road, that someone's going to realize the lack of supervision of those young children, and they're going to come up missing. We need to know where our children are. We need to spend time with them at home, because home is the place that should be a place of safety. It should be a place where children can come home and be refreshed and find time with their parents and know that their parents care about them and care about what happens to them when they leave through the front or back door. Should we all wear body cams? I'm not sure if we should do that, because we might pick up something that other people might not want us to see. But in a day of electronics, the idea is wherever you go, someone's going to be taking a picture of you. Someone's going to be watching what you're doing. We can't avoid that. I don't know who sees my broadcasts or how far away they go. It'd be great if I got $1 million and 1 million followings, but that's not the purpose of it. But we should have, I believe, cameras with us so that we can document the things that happen around us. Especially, this has happened to bring a lot of policemen to accountability, and it could bring a lot of other people to accountability. My biggest problem is with the children that go missing, and I wish we had more cameras out there so that when a child is dragged into a car or a van, someone would see that. It would be registered on a camera somewhere, and that person could be caught. We have too many missing children. And once again, I'm not criticizing the parents that do watch their children, because there's a lot of time children are taken from parents when they're within inches of them. But there are a lot of children that are neglected and are lost because of neglect by the parents. When did Detroit first stall? The experts at Detroit's Wayne State University saw the white exodus coming first. In February 1963, they predicted that Detroit's population, which was then 1.6 million, would fall by 1/4 in just 7 years. The Detroit Free Press buried the story inside. And why not? It was the early 63s. But now, because of the crash that happened over the last 10 years, the financial crisis, half of Detroit's gone, just like Syria. People have left. And those who are left in the city are trying to rebuild it. And we need people. I've said it before. We need more investors. We need people to take it upon themselves to come in and rebuild this great city. Motown. Let's bring the music back. Let's bring the people back. Let's make Detroit a great city again. There's a movie called Time Out of Mind, and it heads below the poverty line. It's starring Richard Gere, and it talks about how hidden the street people are, how neglected and unseen they are. And while I was reading through this article, I was reminded of the time that I was homeless, and I was living out of, sleeping at hotels, sometimes in my van. I put my children at their friends' homes. It wasn't a very long time, but it was a serious point in my life. And I remember it was kind of a funny I was digging cans out of dumpsters, and I did this for a living so that I could get the money for the cans and the bottles and provide money and food for our children, for my children. And it was humiliating at times. I remember one time some bikers came in to the one place I was at, excuse me, and they were ridiculing me for being in the dumpster, and they had no idea what kind of life I was having to live at that time, whether it was my fault or not. Part of it was my fault. Part of it was the way I was raised and the lack of concern that my family had given me. But I remember one time that was actually humorous because I was down in the dumpster. It was partially empty, and I was down in the dumpster gathering cans and bottles, and a man opened the door to the dumpster to start to throw a can in, and he saw me, and he got the funniest look on his face, and I just reached out my hand and took the can from him. He gave it to me and walked away. So I wonder sometimes what he must have thought. But there's a sadness that there are people that are on the street still today, many of them mentally ill, which I was suffering from, and many are ex-military. And that is a destructive thought. I'm turning pages again. And some of this stuff did not interest me too much. There were some love it or leave it. Let's see. I don't think that I even marked any of those. So really, I guess that's the end of my broadcast this week. It's kind of short maybe, but I hope you were interested in the things that I had to say. I want to recap it by stating that we need to pray for the Syrian refugees. We need to pray that the governments that are not taking care of the people where they are will have a change of heart. I believe that God can make a difference. And I'm just going to bring up something that was not in the magazine, but we need to keep our hearts and our minds open towards the people of North Korea, because it is my understanding that they are starving, that the leader of North Korea sits in his castle or his mansion, drinking his wine and eating his wonderful food, and because of his stubbornness and his hate for the rest of the world, he's allowing his countrymen to die from starvation. So there are a lot of things to be concerned about, a lot of things to pray about, and a lot of things that we could be involved with if we will just choose to. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great week. I'll see you again next week on It's About Time. Have a great day. Goodbye.